There's never a dull moment when it comes to Minnesota sports. Whether it's positive or negative.
The Yankees have swept the Twins.
Minnesota Sports Chat has you covered. Talking nothing but Minnesota sports all year long. It's time now for the soon-to-be award-winning, if only in his own mind, Minnesota Sports Chat with your host, Ross Brendel.
Well, that would be me, and this is edition number 237 of the soon-to-be award-winning Minnesota Sports Chat, coming to you from the friendly confines of an estate somewhere in the North Metro. Daniel House in just moments. You can already see him on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. It is the Minnesota Golden Gophers review and preview pod as we break down the Gophers' 25-17 victory over Illinois, and we prepare for the Gophers at Rutgers from Piscataway, New Jersey this Saturday with kickoff at 11 a.m. Side note, Daniel, I just love saying Piscataway. Per usual, we welcome in that aforementioned Daniel House from GophersGuru.com. He is on the X machine at Daniel House MN. Daniel, happy November to you, and let me be the first, at least I hope I am, to wish you a very happy Honda Days and a very merry Toyota-thon. Happy holiday season to you.
Happy holiday season. It's already here. It feels like the football season's gone really fast. I'm sitting here going, Big Ten football in November, this is where people separate themselves now.
Doesn't it always go by fast, though? I mean, that's kind of the beauty of it being just, for the most part, a 12-game season in college football before you get to conference championship games, the bowl games, and this year's expanded playoff. That's why every college football game, whether you're playing a really, maybe a highly ranked team, Daniel, or some non-brand name that you expect to beat by 40, 50 points, every college football game should be celebrated like a holiday.
Well, and the way the schedule worked out for the Gophers, where they had like 5 of the first 6 at home, they had 7 games in a row before bye, and now, they're going to play Rutgers this week and get another bye leading into the Penn State game. So it's just been, I think that's been the underrated aspect of this is like, it's been a challenging time. Like these first 7 games, not having any bye in there, that is a lot of reps and snaps and mental work. And just, the schedule wasn't very friendly with that bye week.
Well, as a fan, I don't know. It's nice to know you're going to get your 7 guaranteed home games for the most part every college football season. I don't know how much I love it when more than half that schedule is front-loaded at the beginning of the year.
But the weather's better,
Correct. And the weather largely was good. I think, was it maybe opening night against North Carolina, there was some light rain off and on, and then maybe the following weekend we had a little bit of rain, but by and large, it's been pretty nice weather. I think the rain, for the most part, has passed us, Daniel. I think the only thing to worry about as a Gopher fan November 23rd against Penn State would perhaps maybe be some snow, but we can talk about that when we get there. Right now, let's review what turned out to be a really nice bowl eligibility win for the Golden Gopher football squad, winning 25-17 this past Saturday. I think, Daniel, when we talked about Illinois last week, I think both you and I thought that the Gophers could win this game, and that is exactly what ended up happening. Max Brosmer, another pretty solid day. Throws a touchdown pass late, no real bad throws or any big turnovers. He had that one throw that I guess was that late in the third quarter, Daniel, where he kind of threw a ball up for grabs. Maybe that wasn't the best, but that's going to happen. By and large, did what the Gophers brought him in to do, manage the offense, move it up and down the field. Darius Taylor, wow, what a game. 111, let me refresh, 131 yards on 22 carries for a TD. Also 9 catches for 58 yards. What a day. Defense recovers 2 fumbles. Maybe perhaps most importantly, although I will never trust any kicker, Dragan Kesic goes 4 for 4. All in all, I'm not sure you could script a better game for the Gophers, Daniel.
Yeah, I thought they played very well, attacked some of the weaknesses that Illinois presented. We talked about their run defense, being able to run the ball effectively. Darius Taylor being able to find the cutback lanes. I thought the offensive line did a good job of generating movement, maybe their best game overall. I thought Greg Johnson put together his best performance. He looked very comfortable in there, and that's what you would expect now. You get to the midway point of the season, you want to see those younger players getting better, and Greg was put into a big role there. I don't believe people have talked enough about the challenges of having a young center in there that hadn't played the position. So seeing put together that performance was solid. And Max Brosmer's just been the difference this year. I mean, it is so apparent to me that, like, you're in a position to win these games at the end of it because Max Brosmer is leading you on critical drives in high leverage spots. I mean, you look at that throw on the go ball to Daniel Jackson, just dropping it into a bucket. And Daniel Jackson, the cool part about that route is the fact that they practice that all the time. Matt Simon hammers controlling the tempo of the route. He slows up and is able to get position on the DB and make the play. I just think Daniel Jackson has improved his draft stock significantly. I mean, his short area routes, his details. I mean, we already know he has great hands, but I think he's just significantly improved every element of his game. And Elijah Spencer's been super reliable. The defense has created takeaways. I think the rush and the coverage working together, being able to get their hands on the football a lot. They've been playing good team football. I thought that was their best complete performance from start to finish, offense, defense, special teams. Maybe tackle a little bit better in some spots, but I thought they set really good edges and didn't allow the perimeter run game to get going. They had a couple pop out with inside runs just from missed tackles, but I mean, they're really maximizing the versatility of their defense. You look at it, Ross, that one fourth down stop, they had, if you want to classify Jack Henderson as a safety, which you could, they had 5 safeties on the field. They had Carey out there, they had Aiden, they had Coy. I mean, Coleman Bryson and Jack Henderson all out there at the same time.
Hey, one quick thing on Coleman Bryson, the big Pinstripe Bowl game MVP from 2 years ago. When you watch him back on film right now, what are you noticing from him? What do you see from him? Because I'll be honest, he's not a player on TV or in the games when you're at them that gets called out a lot. Is he doing things to help this team win, or has he been a player that is now coming in more rotationally than perhaps we expected he would at one point? And I'm not calling him out. Obviously, he's playing well enough to help the defense, but you just don't see his name a ton, maybe perhaps as much as you thought you might going back a year plus.
Yeah, he's been a sub-package player for them. You watch him come in, he's been mugging the A gap at some points and dropping out into zones. They've been moving him around a lot. He's able to work around the box because he's got that physical dimension in his game. So they're trying to find ways to mix and match what they have in the safety room because every guy is a little different. Aiden Goosby's really growing, become really consistent with his coverage skills. They're trying to find ways to get Coy on the field. You look at Carey. Carey's playing strong safety, free safety, nickel. He's playing dime back. They're able to move him all around and do a lot of things with Carey because he's really improved, just overall as a player in his development. And again, I mean, Danny Collins' position group, I kind of said coming into the season that safety was the position group that I was really watching. What type of growth would you get from that room? And to be able to see it come together, they've done some things schematically to help those guys. That's been a big piece in why the defense has gelled because the safety room has, used all of the skill sets in different ways, and they've shown growth.
Offensively, one thing that I noticed, and I've noticed a lot over the last couple weeks, is the running backs, Daniel, in pass protection stepping up. Marcus Majors actually had 2 really nice pass protections, allowing Max Brosmer to stay in the pocket and deliver throws that ended up helping the Gophers win and even close that game out. How important is that to, I don't know, I don't think it's something you make a priority in recruiting, but it's something you have to be able to find running backs who can do that to help your offensive line hold up.
Well, that's really important trait. I mean, being able to diagnose an ID, where, they're sending blitz pressure, they're dropping a rusher in exchange for someone else. You got to have really good eyes. You got to know what type of looks, what type of fronts you see. That starts in preparation. And, you got to be prepared for what you're going to see each week. And that's been the case this year that, Minnesota's running backs have done a good job of IDing And that, if you miss a block or do something there, the quarterback gets knocked off the spot. He's got to, move to the right, move to the left, totally alters the play. So yeah, you look at this season, they've been able to execute in that area, and it helps. They're able to use those backs in ways to help other people out based on the matchups that they have along their front each week. That's an asset. But, I just look at offensively what they've been able to do. Greg Harbaugh's done a really good job. I mean, the whole offensive staff has really built off of designs each week, making subtle tweaks. I've wrote a lot about that on the website that, you see a design maybe in week 2 that they tweak and make it just a little bit different. The defense sees it on film, and you're just tweaking one route, or you're running it with a different personnel grouping or a different formation. Greg's done a really good job of varying concepts. I love the tush push play action boot. That was a nice little play design down in the low red zone. Again, being able to execute when they get inside the 10, which I think has been very impressive. They've obviously put a lot of time and energy into that, but I think Greg Harbaugh should be getting a lot of love from people just for how he's really adapted the system to his personnel and maximized it.
Well, you kind of alluded to it, Daniel, but one thing I'm loving is the resurgence of getting the tight ends involved. Even just simple targets, it's fun to see them get involved in this offense. And right now, I think, and we'll get to the Rutgers portion, when you prepare for the Gophers offense, I feel like it's a tougher prepare than it had been the last few years, because they can run, when they want to, they can pass. And here's one thing that has also stood out this year, Daniel, since the first couple of games, they've cut down on penalties, which has been really nice, because those are drive killers. I think we had a couple pre-snap penalty issues, I don't play for the team. But other than that, by and large, even on defense, ever since that North Carolina game where it was a penalty every 3 plays, it felt like, they've really kind of gone back to a PJ Fleck, well-coached team that doesn't, for the most part, get themselves beat. Not that it doesn't happen here and there, but they've largely cleaned that stuff up. And we've talked about this before, Daniel. The Gophers so seldomly win games by blowing out teams. So when you're going to win a bunch of games by 1 score or less than 10 points, you can't beat yourself. And they've done a really good job eliminating those things over this nice, now 4-game conference winning streak with a chance to be 5 this upcoming Saturday.
And it comes down to this. I've studied a lot of teams. I've looked at how they build things. I mean, there's a lot of layers to it. We could have a whole pod on roster building. But when you look at how these days now the talent is so compressed in the middle where there's not a lot of separation, I always feel like now the quarterback play is what takes you over the top, along with the schemes and coaching, in-game coaching, ability to prepare and get your team in a position to be successful. And Max this year has just saw the field so well, been able to execute the system. You see what happens when you have a quarterback that can execute the system at a high level, process extremely well, be accurate, take care of the football. You look at, they haven't been turning the ball over, and that's in part because of sound decision-making. The penalties, like you said, a lot of those penalties earlier in the year just came at terrible times. I mean, goodness gracious, like those couple of defensive holding penalties against North Carolina, you got a holding, you got a false start. Like that just totally messes with any offense. I don't care who you have out there. They've been able to do these things because I feel as if quarterback, we know quarterback's a really important position, but when you're in the middle of the pack, from a talent standpoint, just based on what everybody has from resources and, how teams are built, you need to have that quarterback that can give you the edge. And I feel like Brosmer's been the difference when you compare the quarterbacks in each game. He has played better, and that's been huge.
Well, and I hesitate to say this because I don't believe in superstitions because they're bad luck. Thank you for those that got that. They've largely been healthy, Daniel, and I think when you talk about roster building and roster management, when you're a team like Minnesota, I think teams all across the country, Alabama and Georgia would say this, they're not as deep as they were 3-4 years ago. And then you factor that out across college football, teams like Minnesota aren't going to be as deep as they probably were 2-3 years ago, or at least have the trust level of some of the players because they don't know them as well. So I think that's been a big part of it too. Sometimes to have a nice season or maybe a bit of an unexpected season, you got to get some things to go your way, and perhaps, hopefully, that's me knocking on wood, the Gophers could stay largely injury-free here with 3 games to play. Do want to remind everybody real quickly to thank Beans Coffee Company for supporting Minnesota Sports Chat. I really do appreciate that. You can simply thank them just by visiting coffeebybeans.com. I've made this plea now for a couple of months. You don't have to buy anything. I'll get to that portion in a second, but please just go there, coffeebybeans.com. If you're a coffee drinker or you have a coffee drinker in your life, perfect this holiday season to give them some new coffee to try out that I promise you is good, and they will love it. Roasts and blends for everybody's palate. You'll find something delightful and tasty that meets your coffee drinking needs. It's the best small batch coffee around, brewed locally in Mankato, Minnesota by sports fans just like us. They cheer for the same teams we do, so just another reason to support them. Coffeebybeans.com. If you do decide to purchase something, here's a deal for you. Use the promo code SportsChat. That's promo code SportsChat. You'll save a little bit of cash at checkout. Coffee by Beans, promo code SportsChat. Coffee by Beans and Beans Coffee Company ships on orders of $35 or more. Absolutely free. Promo code SportsChat at coffeebybeans.com. I'm having some right now in my Binford Tools coffee mug for those watching on lovely YouTube. Okay, let's get into it. Gophers and Rutgers Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Side note, I know it's the deer opener for a lot of Gopher fans. If every game could be played at 11 a.m. on Saturday, I would take that. So let's get more 11 a.m. games
Let's go
next season. That would be great. Rutgers is 4-4, 1-0 in the Big Ten. They've lost 4 in a row. They'll be coming in off of a bye week, so we'll see if that is good for them. Rutgers is quarterbacked by former Gopher quarterback Ethan Kaliak-Manis. He has 9 touchdown passes to 5 interceptions this year. The Gophers, Daniel, are favored by 6.5 points, and per the ESPN matchup predictor, for whatever that's worth, it gives the Gophers a what % chance at beating Rutgers, Daniel House?
I'm going to say 66%.
You're pretty good at these. This one you were a bit further off, 60.1% for the Gophers to win the game. Daniel, if the Gophers are to meet my preseason prediction of best case scenario 7-5, and they're to get to 7-3 on Saturday, how do they do that in Piscataway, New Jersey? I live in fear that Rutgers has had a bye week and the Gophers haven't as they get ready for theirs, but I guess you could make the case that might be a good thing.
I'm telling you, Kirk Sherrock has been in the laboratory, man. I know Kirk from his time here. He's got the hoodie on. He's got the stocking cap on. He probably hasn't showered in like 4 days. He's been just drinking coffee, chilling out in the film room, scheming this thing up. So, hey, Kirk's a smart guy. I want to see what he does.
Neither one's going to say it, but both Kirk and PJ want this win badly, don't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's just the competitive nature of college football. And so I want to see Kirk off a bye week. I know he's going to have something planned. He's been sitting in the laboratory working things up. But you look at Rutgers holistically, a super beat up team. You know, people coming into the season had pretty high expectations for Rutgers just based on their schedule. I mean, go look at Rutgers' schedule, who they had to play this year. They had one of the easiest schedules in all of college football, but injuries have really hurt them. You know, now you look at like Mo Toure got hurt right before the season, Wesley Bailey battling through stuff, Aaron Lewis, they've been dinged up in the secondary as well. It's really impacted their defense. You look at their defense, number 125 in the whole nation in first down EPA per play, 115th in defensive success rate, 125th in rush offense. I mean, it's in rush offense success rate for their defense. I mean, you look at, they can't play the run right now. And I think that's going to be one of the factors in this game. Again, Minnesota playing another team that's struggling to defend the run. So I look at it like, you know, this is a game where Minnesota is going to try to pound the rock, and Rutgers is going to do the same thing. We'll see if Kamanunga is available. He got hurt in the USC game. It's a big factor in this matchup as well. Last week, you look at their target distribution. Daimir Miller, a transfer from Monmouth, had 20 targets alone in the USC game. Again, dealing with some erratic injuries throughout the whole roster. But, you know, then you got Ethan Kaliak-Manis storyline. I think this is a game where you want to get him off schedule. You want to back him up. You want to change the picture. You want to send blitz pressure from different spots, make them have to identify droppers, do a lot of different things to change the picture. I think that's the recipe. Load that box up, stop the run, and then change the picture in passing downs.
Do you think Athan's time at Minnesota helps at all with the offensive game planning? Different defensive coordinator, but some of the, well, good chunk of the personnel is the same from when he was here literally just months ago. Does that help as much as people think it helps, or is that kind of an overblown thing in the grand scheme of football when you talk about this guy just coached here last year, what does he know? Or this quarterback was there last year, he knows the defense. Does that stuff matter as much as fans like to say that it does?
I mean, there's core principles. A lot of people do the similar things defensively when you play each week. It's just not really talked about. Everybody's got their own wrinkles, and you know that Rutgers is going to have some things that, like, hey, this stresses, I remember this stresses this look, or, when they're in this, they like to do this. But people change things up, and also they identify some of those weaknesses as well, the people that, might be getting exploited. So there's storylines all over this game. You've got Joe Harris-Simiak, who used to work at Minnesota's Rutgers defensive coordinator. You got Corey Heatherman, who was the linebackers coach at Rutgers. He's the defensive coordinator at Minnesota. You got Kirk Shiraka, who's the offensive coordinator for Rutgers. You got Athan playing quarterback. You've got Michael Flip Dixon on defense, who played for Minnesota and transferred to Rutgers. And then you've got Greg Schiano, who was a mentor of PJ Fleck. So this you can take a ride down the old narrative land here and just basically talk all day about all the connections related to this game. And I think it's kind of overblown. I mean, yeah, the people know each other, but there's people that know each other on staff and support staff positions each week that nobody even talks about.
Okay, so Gophers to get to 7-5 in your estimation, is it more about what they do in the run game or more about what they do in the pass game? I said this last week against Illinois. It didn't fully bear to be true. This does feel like a game where the Gophers are going to try and be heavily run-oriented, but maybe not. I mean, the last 6-7 weeks, Daniel, of, dare I say it, a pass-first offense, for better or worse, has been an absolute revelation to Golden Gopher football watching. So I guess I'm interested to get your opinion on what the Gophers do or have to do to get a victory as you go into witness protection here on the YouTube screen.
What was the deal? I went into witness protection.
Yeah, your screen went completely black. You were like shaded out. I'll send you a screen.
Oh, wow.
Later.
Wow, that'll be fascinating.
Yeah, you looked like you were in, was it the Allstate commercials where they put people in witness protection program? That's what you looked like for about 5 seconds for those watching on the YouTube machine.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I think this is a game where you're going to see them really pound the rock, do a lot of things in the run game. I think there's some stuff schematically that they'll try to exploit, especially in the perimeter and the edges of Rutgers defense. I think a lot of the things that they did last week with some tweaks will be effective. The outside zone game, maybe doing some outside zone with some insert stuff where you're inserting tight ends to create extra gaps in the run game. I think you can run or pass in this game based on what what the defense is giving you. Personnel-wise, Rutgers is just totally decimated on defense. We'll see if some of these guys get healthier and are able to contribute. I think that's a big factor in the game. Defensively, like I said, being able to stop the run, I think you load up that box. You force Ethan to have to make some throws into tighter windows, but then in, rotating coverages, doing things where you're showing pressure presentations and bluffing out, maybe showing single high look and then bluffing out into zone, really tightening windows, forcing him to have to process very fast. I think those are the things that they'll do. And if they can do that, maybe get a couple of takeaways, win the turnover battle, this is a game that they can win.
So, Daniel, I don't know how much you paid attention to this, but Vanderbilt became bowl eligible this past Saturday. And there are multiple paths to a Minnesota and Vanderbilt bowl game as we sit 4 weeks away from conference championship Saturday. Are you excited about the possibility of another Jerry Kill in some way, shape, or form matchup against
No.
his old school and PJ Fleck?
Give me South Carolina Gamecocks, man. Give me that Beamer matchup, man. That's what I want. I want that South Carolina defense, that 4-4 speed, and those premier pass rushers all day long. Give me that matchup. I want to see the Mayo Bowl. I want to see the
Yes.
Mayo. I want to see PJ get dunked, his bald head get
Me
dunked with
too.
Mayo, man.
Me too. Me too. We've talked about this before, and that can kind of conclude the Gopher portion. Bowl games have entirely jumped the shark, but I still enjoy them no matter who plays. I think one thing for Gopher fans, I think you can be fairly excited or assured. I can't see any reason why Max Brosmer wouldn't play in the bowl game. So that
sure.
at least the Gophers, barring injury, will have their starting quarterback in whatever game they go to, whether it be another attempt at being 4-time Quick Lane Bowl champions or something else. The bowl games, I still think, yeah, you're doing it again. You're in witness protection. I think it's when you move close into your camera like this. The bowl games to me are still hilarious and fun, and they should be treated as I hate saying reward because they are grown adults basically at this point. But the hilarity of the Mayo Bowl, I love that Duke's Mayo has jumped all in on just the hilarity of the bowl, as well as the Pop-Tart Bowl. Remember how much love the Pop-Tart Bowl was getting on social media?
Yeah.
I believe it was last year, maybe 2 years ago. Embrace it. Have fun with it. I think as a fan, they're always enjoyable for the most part, not whether you win or lose, unless it's in a college football playoff setting, Daniel. It's that you get to see a different opponent that you traditionally don't see.
Well, yeah, and if it's cool destinations that you can go to, have a good time. I like when they activate around the bowl game with fun stuff.
Yes, yeah. Nothing like Detroit a day after Christmas, by the way. It's people clamor to Detroit the day after Christmas.
It's funny because, you get ready for these press conferences and you hear the media members talking about, man, I want to go here, I want to go there. I don't want to spend Christmas in Detroit. And so now I feel like tomorrow's conversation on Wednesday is going to be about, we are not spending Christmas in Detroit. We're going to be heading somewhere else most likely this year. So, hey,
well, but to guarantee no return trip to Detroit, though, you probably have to win at least one more game, right?
Yeah, I'd say it kind of depends. It sounds like if Indiana's elevated up into there and they have 3 CFP teams from the Big Ten,
everybody's going to move
everybody moves up a spot. But the bowl season this year is going to be fun because of that CFP with the 12 team plus, everybody in the bowl traditional bowls. Like I'm looking forward to it. Me and you are kind of that way that I'm going to watch every bowl game. Any of them that are on Wednesday at 2:00 in the afternoon, I'm going to watch it.
Well, the ones where I'm still at work, you know me, I take a massive chunk of vacation, which is actually a day or two less this year because the way the calendar breaks. But even those games the week of Christmas, like you said, that are Tuesday at 3:00, they'll be on at my desk just because I'm a sicko like that. You got to keep tabs on them. Anything else around the Big Ten or around college football excite you this week? One thing I'm interested to see is just how this keeps shaping up with Indiana. How far can they truly go? I thought, I put them on a little bit of upset alert with Michigan State. That went well. But it now feels like Indiana still has Ohio State and Michigan. But if you only lose one of those games, I think they have Michigan this weekend. If you only lose one of those games, they're basically a foregone conclusion to make it to the college football playoff. So I'm just interested to see how they continue to play. At this point, Daniel, I'm not convinced they'll lose a game outside of maybe Ohio State. And again, we talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago. Props to them. This is fun. This is what the new college football system is supposed to do. Can Indiana do it year in and year out? I don't know. My hunch says no, but we don't know. So let's enjoy it. I have no reason to not like Indiana unless the Gophers are playing them.
Don't doubt Signetti. Don't doubt my guy, man. He has an eye for football talent. He does. He knows what he's looking for in each position group. And I tell you what, now you look at hiring coaches. If I'm an AD, I'm looking at these guys that have shown in the past that they can take that orange and they can squeeze all the juice out of it. They can get the productive player that might not be, highly recruited, but they can get the most out of that guy. He's going to play with tight fundamentals. They're going to work together, going to play in sync. They're going to understand the system. They're smart. They play tough. They don't make mistakes. You look at Indiana, all of those things have come together for them. I mean, we talked about it before the season. I mean, I remember when we were like, man, media has them at 17, and I'm going, no way in the world that happens, because they added so many productive players that, they're going to have success. And I think it's been a credit to Cignetti for how he did it, his staff continuity, and how they built their team. They're legit. I don't care what anybody says. You got all these people out here going, oh, they haven't played anybody. Well, I mean, yeah, early in the season, their schedule was lighter, but they continue to win by wide margins. They continue to look very efficient. Like, all the metrics that you look at, their style of play, what they're doing week to week, it's very impressive, and people better be ready. This is a good measuring stick game for them this week.
I just spent like 2 minutes rambling to myself with my mic off. Is that what you're trying to tell me? There we go. People are watching it. People are watching on YouTube, and they're like, "What is he saying?" I hope there's good lip readers. No, I'm just kidding. All I'll say really quickly is, Sharon Moore. How long do you expect that he can last at Michigan? I didn't love the hire from the get-go. It felt like the easy way out, and it also kind of felt like they had to. I'm cheering for him because he seems like a good dude and super authentic. But Michigan's not going to take likely to winning 8 or less games. And if he can't return to a 10-win season next year, I don't think he'll survive this. I think it could be a very quick tenure at Michigan. So I guess just my thoughts on your thoughts on where Michigan's at right now with Sharon Moore, and just where they're at overall as a program coming off their national championship.
I don't think Wink Martindale's translated very well to the college game as a DC. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if they made some sort of switch there. And I say it because I think he's having trouble. Here's what I think he's having trouble with. I think he's having trouble with the fact that, like, the hash marks, the field is wider here. And there's been some stuff detail-wise I don't think they're as tight, or like the precision of the defense and what they're trying to execute. I don't think it's been there as much. And so I'm wondering, like, what changes they make defensively. I think they've been hampered by some personnel stuff. Offensively, obviously, it's the quarterback play. I think going to Warren was the right move. He's definitely given them more than the others have. And I think it's like just some fundamental stuff where it's like he's throwing the ball to the right spot, but like just execute, be more accurate, he's making most of the time making the right decision. It's just like the execution wasn't quite there. So I think it made sense to go back to him.
Final question for you. Will I see you at Gophers v. Oral Roberts tomorrow night at the artist known as Williams Arena?
You will not see me there. I'm in complete football mode right now. So you'll probably see me eventually once I dig out of the football cave here, which I don't know. It never really seemed to dig out of it because the transfer portal is going to be the next thing after this season wraps up.
I like your Gopher basketball team this year. I
do too.
I think they can again be functional for a second year in a row and perhaps be in the mix for the NCAA tournament.
Got a nice roster.
My sources tell me the computers like us, and by sources, it's my buddy who pays more attention to it than I do. What can you tell me about the computers and Gopher basketball? Have you looked at the Ken Pom or anything yet?
Yeah, Ken Pom had them a lot higher than people even thought they would. So, I mean, I think it was like 58, if I remember right, somewhere in that range. So, bound. But I mean, hey, like hitting the transfer portal. I think Ben's approach here is fascinating in terms of like he wants guys that like have played a ton of basketball that have just a little bit of time left. Okay, where they're like, okay, this is my last chance to make a mark.
Sure.
My career's coming to an end. I've been an experienced player, and now I get to play on the big stage. So finding those players that have that like chip on their shoulder, that have been productive and experienced, and then, now they've got a team, I think, that's deeper. I think they're a little bit faster. I think they can play with a little bit more pace. So I'm interested to see how all the pieces come together and stylistically what they look like and how they feature the talent that they have.
Well, House, this will do it for another edition of the soon-to-be award-winning Minnesota Sports Chat. Thank you to everybody for watching on YouTube. If that's how you're finding this podcast, thank you for putting up with the different setting today as I continue to recover from some sickness. As always, thank you to Daniel House for being here on another edition of the Golden Gopher Review and Preview edition of Minnesota Sports Chat. I thought I had something else for you, Daniel, that had nothing to do with anything. And for the life of me, I can't remember what it is, so I'll just say thank you and let you go right there. Does that sound fine?
Save it for next week. It'll come to you. Thanks for having me.
And as you say that now, I just reminded I was going to do an on-air production meeting with you. Should we talk next week and then take the bye week off together leading into Penn State, or should we just go through both weeks?
I think we should go through both weeks.
Okay, well, I think a lot of that will depend on if the Gophers beat Rutgers or not, my excitement level.
We'll see.
I'm not saying that fire everybody if they lose to Rutgers, but I think the excitement level changes just a little bit if you don't head into Penn State on a 5-game winning streak.
Well, we'll go with the flow. You're driving the bus. You're driving the bus.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there. That is Daniel House from GophersGuru.com. Daniel House MN on the X machine. I am at the Ross Brendel on that same X/Twitter machine. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like, comment. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, please tell your family and friends all about Minnesota Sports Chat, especially if they're Gopher fans for this edition. And we'll talk to Daniel about basketball throughout the season as well. That does it for this edition of Minnesota Sports Chat. We will talk again real soon.